Close your eyes. Let the heavy curtain of the present day fall away. Imagine standing on the edge of the world, where the land meets the endless rhythmic Atlantic. Tonight, there is nowhere else you need to be. There are no deadlines, no noises of the city, only the steady, comforting beam of light cutting through the dark. Join me as we step into the boots of the keeper in the year 1892 for a night of quiet watchfulness. The year is 1892. It is a Tuesday in late November, a time when the air along the coast of Maine begins to carry the sharp, crisp promise of winter. The sun has long since dipped below the horizon behind the pine forests to the west, leaving the sky a deep, bruised indigo that is slowly turning into absolute black. Here, on this isolated promontory of granite that juts out into the Atlantic Ocean, the silence is not an absence of sound, but a heavy, blanketed presence. It is a silence composed of the low, ceaseless thrum of the ocean waves against the rocks below, a sound so constant that it becomes part of the silence itself, like the beating of a slow, giant heart. Elias, the keeper of the light, stands at the base of the whitewashed tower. He is a man of routine, a man whose life is measured not in hours, but in the steady rotation of gears and the consumption of oil. He wears a heavy coat made of thick, coarse wool dyed a dark navy blue that has faded slightly at the elbows. The wool is scratchy and warm, smelling faintly of salt spray and the pipe tobacco he smokes on his breaks. He buttons the coat all the way to his chin, the brass buttons cold against his gloved fingers. Each button slips into its hole with a dull, satisfying tug, sealing him in against the biting wind coming off the water. He looks down at his boots. They are sturdy leather boots, well oiled to repel the dampness of the coast. The leather is creased where his toes bend, deep lines that tell the story of thousands of steps taken up and down, up and down. He shifts his weight, and the gravel of the path beneath him crunches softly. It is a distinct granular sound, stone grinding against stone. He takes a breath, inhaling the cold air. It tastes of brine, of wet seaweed, and of clean, untouched distance. There is no smoke here, no factory soot, only the pure, sharp scent of the ocean. Elias reaches into his deep pocket and withdraws a ring of keys. They are heavy, iron and brass, clinking together with a dull chime. He selects the largest one, a skeleton key with a long shaft and intricate teeth. He steps forward to the heavy oak door at the base of the lighthouse. The wood of the door is thick, fortified with iron bands to withstand the gales that batter this coast in January. He slides the key into the lock. The metal is cold. He turns it. Click. The mechanism inside, well greased and maintained, slides back with a heavy mechanical thud. It is a sound of security, of a barrier being lifted. He pushes the door open. It swings inward on massive hinges that have been oiled to silence. He steps over the threshold, out of the wind and into the stillness of the tower. Inside, the air is different. It is still, cool, and smells of stone, whitewash, and the faint, pervasive odor of kerosene oil. It is the scent of the lighthouse, a scent that has seeped into the very mortar of the bricks over the last 40 years. Elias closes the door behind him. The latch engages with a solid clack, shutting out the sound of the wind. Now the roar of the ocean is muffled, distant, like a memory of a storm, rather than the storm itself. He stands in the circular entryway. The floor is made of smooth gray flagstones, swept clean of every speck of dust. In the center of the room, spiraling upwards into the shadows, is the staircase. It is a cast-iron spiral, painted a glossy black. The steps are narrow, fanning out from a central pillar, winding their way up, up, and up, towards the lantern room far above.
There are exactly 144 steps. Elias knows them all. He knows which ones creak slightly under his weight and which ones are perfectly silent. He removes his heavy wool coat, hanging it on a wooden peg near the door. He places his hat, a simple peaked cap, on the peg beside it. He smooths his hair back with his hand, a habitual gesture. Then he approaches the stairs. The ascent begins. It is a slow, deliberate process. Elias does not rush. A lighthouse keeper never rushes. Haste leads to mistakes, and in the lighthouse, mistakes mean darkness. He places his right hand on the cool iron railing. The metal is smooth under his palm, polished by years of hands guiding themselves upward. He takes the first step. Clang. His boot meets the metal. It is a soft, resonant sound that echoes slightly in the hollow tube of the tower. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3.
He falls into a rhythm. Step, pause, breathe. Step, pause, breathe. The motion is hypnotic. Around and around he goes, the spiral carrying him slowly higher. The walls of the tower are brick, painted a thick, creamy white. As he climbs, he passes small rectangular windows cut into the thick walls. Through the first window, he sees only the dark shapes of the scrub bushes near the base of the tower. He continues climbing. Step 20. Step 21. The air grows slightly cooler as he rises away from the earth. The sound of his own breathing is steady, a rhythmic accompaniment to the soft footfalls. He is not just climbing stairs, he is transitioning. He is leaving the world of the ground, the world of soil and stone, and entering the world of the sky and the light. Step 45. Step 46. He reaches the first landing. It is a small metal grating where he can pause. He stops for a moment, not because he is tired, but because it is part of the ritual. He checks the oil level in the spare can stored here in a small wooden cupboard. He opens the cupboard door, a small squeak, checks the can, and closes it. Satisfied, he continues. Step 50. Step 51. The spiral tightens slightly. The shadows lengthen. Above him, he can see the faint glow filtering down from the lantern room, but he is not there yet. He focuses on the placement of his feet. Heel, toe, heel, toe. The repetition is soothing. It clears the mind. There are no thoughts of the news from the mainland, no worries about the village gossip. There is only the stair, the rail, and the climb. Step 80. Step 81. Through the next window, he can see the horizon. It is a flat, dark line where the black ocean meets the black sky. A single star has appeared, winking faintly through a break in the clouds. Elias watches it for a moment, a tiny pinprick of light in the vast emptiness. He turns back to the stairs. Step 100, 101. His legs feel the familiar burn, a gentle warmth in the muscles that tells him he is working, that he is alive. The railing feels colder now. The wind outside is picking up, whistling softly around the upper masonry of the tower, a low, mournful tune that vibrates through the brickwork. He can feel the tower standing firm against it, a solid, unmoving object in a moving world. Step 130. He is nearing the top. The smell of kerosene becomes stronger, richer. It is the smell of duty. He sees the trap door above him, the entrance to the watchroom, the heart of the lighthouse where the keeper spends his night. Step 143. Step 144. Elias steps off the final stair onto the iron floor of the watchroom. He takes a deep breath, his chest expanding. He has arrived. He is above the world now, suspended in the night sky, ready to begin the work that will keep the darkness at bay.
Elias stands in the watchroom, the small circular chamber situated just below the lantern itself. The air here is warmer, trapped by the glass above and heated by the lingering warmth of the day. It is a functional space, sparse and clean. A small cast-iron stove sits against one wall, its chimney pipe venting out through the roof. Beside it is a high-backed wooden chair, the seat worn smooth by years of use. A small desk is built into the curve of the wall, holding the station's logbook, a pen, and a bottle of ink. But Elias does not sit. His work is just beginning. He moves to the center of the room, where the massive brass pedestal of the lens apparatus supports the light above. He climbs the short iron ladder that leads up into the lantern room itself, the very pinnacle of the tower. The lantern room is a cage of glass and metal. Surrounded on all sides by large, thick panes of glass, he is now level with the horizon. The wind outside is louder here, whistling against the metal mullions that hold the glass panels in place. The ocean below is a vast, churning expanse of shadow, visible only by the faint white foam of the breaking waves. In the center of this glass room sits the jewel of the lighthouse, the Fresnel lens. It is a massive beehive-shaped structure of polished glass prisms and brass rings, standing taller than a man. The brass gleams even in the dim twilight, polished to a mirror finish. It is a masterpiece of optical engineering, designed to take the relatively small light of an oil lamp and magnify it into a powerful beam that can be seen for 20 miles out to sea. Elias approaches the lamp, which sits inside the hollow center of the lens. It is a complex mechanical lamp, known as a moderator lamp. He opens the small glass door of the lens apparatus to access it. The smell of kerosene, sharp and clean, becomes the dominant scent. His movements are precise, practiced thousands of times. First, he checks the oil reservoir. It is full, the clear liquid reaching the marked line. He then takes a small pair of brass scissors designed specifically for this task and carefully trims the charred end of the circular cotton wick. Snip, snip, snip. The sound is tiny in the vast silence. He ensures the top of the wick is perfectly level. An uneven wick means an uneven flame, and an uneven flame means smoke, which will fog the precious glass of the lens. He brushes the carbon crumbs away with a small, soft brush. Next, he checks the glass chimney that sits over the flame. He removes it carefully. It must be spotless. He takes a clean linen cloth from his pocket and wipes the glass, inside and out, removing any trace of dust or fingerprints. He holds it up to the fading light of the sky, inspecting it for imperfections. Satisfied, he sets it aside on a small brass tray. Now the moment of ignition. He takes a wooden match from a metal box mounted on the wall. He strikes it against the rough surface of the box's side. Psst! The match flares into life, a sudden blossom of yellow light in the dim room. The smell of sulfur briefly mixes with the kerosene. He lowers the flame to the wick. The kerosene-soaked cotton catches instantly. A small blue flame jumps around the circle of the wick, quickly turning into a bright yellow glow. He watches it for a moment, ensuring it is burning evenly all the way around. Then he carefully replaces the glass chimney over the flame. The draft created by the chimney pulls the flame upwards, making it brighter and steadier. The light is now lit, but it is not yet at full power. Elias must adjust the flow of oil. He turns a small brass knob on the side of the lamp. He listens. Drip, drip, drip. He can hear the oil being pumped up to the wick. He adjusts the knob again, watching the flame. It grows taller, wider, its yellow light becoming more intense, filling the inside of the lens structure. The brass rings of the lens begin to glow, catching the light and bending it, focusing it. He continues to adjust the flame, turning the wick up millimeter by millimeter, waiting for the lamp to heat up. It is a delicate balance. Too low and the light is not bright enough. Too high and the lamp will smoke, coating the inside of the lens with soot. He watches the tip of the flame, ensuring it is just below the point where it would begin to smoke. This process takes time. Minutes pass. The only sounds are the wind outside and the faint rhythmic dripping of the oil. Finally, the flame is perfect, a steady, brilliant cone of light. Elias steps back and closes the glass door of the lens. He looks up. The light is no longer just a lamp, it has become a beacon. The giant glass prisms of the Fresnel lens have caught the light, magnifying it, transforming it into a powerful, unwavering eye that stares out into the encroaching darkness. The tower is awake.
The light is burning, a steady, unmoving star trapped inside the glass cage of the lantern room. But a lighthouse must speak. It must flash to tell the ships exactly where they are. And to do that, the massive lens must move. Elias steps away from the lamp and moves to the side of the pedestal. Beneath the lens, encased in the heavy iron column that supports it, lies the machine that gives the light its rhythm. It is a clockwork mechanism, purely mechanical, driven not by electricity or steam, but by gravity. It is the same principle as a grandfather clock, but on a colossal industrial scale. He approaches the winding crank. It is a sturdy iron handle with a polished wooden grip, worn smooth and dark by the sweat and oil of 1,000 nights. It protrudes from the side of the pedestal like the arm of a dormant giant. Elias grips the handle. The wood feels cool and solid in his palm. He plants his feet firmly on the iron floor, bracing himself. The weights that drive the machine have descended the length of the tower's central shaft during the day, and now they must be hauled back up. He begins to turn the crank. Click. A heavy ratchet sound. Click. Click. The resistance is substantial. He is lifting hundreds of pounds of lead weights suspended on a thick steel cable far below him in the darkness of the tower's throat. He pushes the handle down, circles it around, and pulls it up. It is a slow, circular labor. Click-clack, click-clack. The sound is loud in the small room, a sharp metallic rhythm that marks the passage of effort. Elias falls into the motion. His shoulder rises and falls. His breathing syncs with the clicking of the ratchet. He does not count the turns. His body knows when the weights are high enough. He stares blankly at the brass gears exposed behind a small glass panel in the pedestal. They are currently still, waiting for the energy he is storing into the system. For 5 minutes, the only reality is the turning of the crank. The muscles in his back tighten and release. The sound of the ratchet becomes a hypnotic percussion. Click-clack, click-clack. Finally, the tension on the handle changes. The weights have reached the top of their travel. Elias gives the crank one final firm turn to ensure it is secure, then carefully disengages it. He hangs the handle on its designated hook on the wall. The silence rushes back in for a brief second, only to be broken by the next step. He reaches for the brake lever, a small brass switch near the gears. He flips it. Inside the pedestal, the energy is released. The heavy weights begin their microscopic descent, pulling on the cables. The cables turn the drum. The drum turns the main drive gear. Whirr. A low humming vibration begins to emanate from the floor. It is a sound felt as much as heard. The governor fan, a spinning device that regulates the speed of the rotation, begins to whir, its blades cutting through the air to keep the gears moving at a perfect, constant pace. Slowly, majestically, the giant Fresnel lens begins to rotate. It does not spin fast. It moves with the heavy, unstoppable momentum of a planet. The glass prisms, which a moment ago were stationary walls of light, now begin to slide past Elias. As the lens turns, the beam of light it projects sweeps across the darkness outside. Elias watches the rotation. He pulls a silver pocket watch from his vest. It is a heavy timepiece, ticking softly against his palm. He flips the lid open and watches the second hand. He times the rotation. The lens must make one full revolution exactly every 4 minutes, producing a flash of light every minute as the bullseye of the lens passes the shore.
He marks a scratch on the rotating brass ring of the lens against a fixed point on the pedestal. He waits. The gears hum. Tick-tock, tick-tock from the watch. Whirr from the governor. The scratch mark approaches the fixed point. Elias watches the second hand. 58, 59, 60. The mark aligns perfectly. The timing is true. The machine is keeping perfect time with the universe. He snaps the watch shut and slides it back into his pocket. The tower is now fully operational. The light is bright, the rotation is steady, and the rhythm is set. Elias stands for a moment, bathed in the alternating light and shadow as the lens turns. The warm glow of the lamp passes over his face, then leaves him in shadow, then returns. It is a slow, lulling strobe. The room feels alive now, filled with the heartbeat of the machine. The oil of the lamp, the warmth of the lamp, the hum of the gears, and the whistle of the wind outside. Everything is in its place. He runs his hand along the brass railing that surrounds the lens, feeling the slight vibration of the mechanism. His work in the lantern room is done for now, but the night is long, and the weights will need winding again in 4 hours. He turns and walks to the iron hatch in the floor. He descends the short ladder back down into the watchroom below. The noise of the wind is slightly muffled here, but the ceiling above him, the floor of the lantern room, vibrates gently with the turning of the great glass eye. Elias walks to the small desk. He picks up the pen, dips it into the inkwell, and opens the logbook. The paper is thick and coarse. In the column for lighting time, he writes in a neat cursive script, 4:52 p.m. Under wind, he writes northeast, fresh breeze. Under weather, he writes clear. He sets the pen down. He sits in the wooden chair, the wood creaking softly. He extends his legs towards the small cast-iron stove. The fire inside is banked low, giving off a gentle, radiating heat. He interlaces his fingers over his stomach and closes his eyes, listening. Above him, the gears turn. Whirr. Outside, the waves crash. Shh. Inside, the stove ticks as the metal expands. The long watch has truly begun.
The watchroom is now fully settled into the night. The only illumination comes from the small rectangular door of the cast-iron stove, which glows with a faint, pulsing orange light, and the rhythmic sweep of the great beam revolving overhead. Every 4 minutes, a pale, ghostly light washes over the walls, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, before plunging the room back into the cozy semi-darkness. Elias remains in his wooden chair for a long time, simply letting the heat of the stove seep into his bones, driving out the chill of the spiral climb. But the body requires fuel, just as the lamp does. It is time for supper. He leans forward and opens the small iron door of the stove. The embers inside are glowing a deep, intense red. He takes a piece of dried hardwood from a small stack beside the chair, birch perhaps, with its papery bark. He places it onto the coals. It crackles softly, a sharp, dry sound before catching fire. The heat increases. Elias stands and moves to a small wooden cupboard mounted on the curved wall. He opens it. Inside, his provisions are stacked with military precision. Tins of beef, bags of flour, a jar of pickled eggs, and a loaf of dark, dense bread wrapped in a linen cloth. Tonight, the meal is simple. He takes a small, battered tin pot from a hook. He pours water into it from a ceramic pitcher, the water glugging softly. He places the pot on the flat, black surface of the stove. Then he takes a strip of dried, salted beef and a sharp paring knife. He sits the beef on a small wooden board. Scritch, slice. He cuts the meat into small, uniform cubes. The knife is sharp, but the meat is tough. He has to press down, sawing gently. He takes his time. There is no rush. He sweeps the cubes into the water.
Next, he takes a potato, its skin rough and brown, still smelling faintly of the cellar earth. He peels it, the long strips of skin curling away to reveal the white flesh beneath. He cubes the potato and adds it to the pot. He places a heavy iron lid onto the pot. Now he waits. Cooking on a wood stove is a slow art. You cannot turn a dial. You must wait for the metal to heat, for the water to absorb that heat, for the gentle convection to begin. Elias sits back in his chair. He listens to the pot. At first there is silence, then a faint hissing, then the slow, rhythmic clink of the lid vibrating as the steam begins to build. Minutes drag by. The smell of the room changes. The metallic scent of the machinery is joined by the savory, earthy aroma of the stew. It is a thick, hearty smell, salt, meat, and starch. It is the smell of survival in a cold place. While the stew simmers, Elias prepares his bread. He unwraps the linen cloth. The loaf is round and crusty. He holds it in his left hand and the knife in his right. He saws off a thick slice. The crust resists, then gives way with a crunch. The crumb inside is soft. He places the slice directly on the stovetop, just for a moment, to toast it. He watches it carefully, turning it over when the smell of toasted grain reaches his nose. When the stew is ready, he pours it into a deep ceramic bowl. The steam rises in a white column, twisting in the draft. He sits, the bowl warm in his hands. He eats slowly. He dips the toasted bread into the broth, watching it soak up the liquid. He chews methodically. In the silence of the tower, the sounds of eating, the clink of the spoon against the bowl, the crunch of the crust, seem amplified. It is a solitary communion. After the meal is finished, he wipes the bowl clean with the last crust of bread. He drinks a cup of water. He feels heavy now, warm and satisfied. The wind outside seems less biting, the ocean less vast. But a keeper is never idle. He stands and moves to the workbench. It is time for maintenance. He picks up the brass scissors he used earlier to trim the wick. They are already clean, but in the salt air, corrosion is a constant enemy. Brass must be polished. It is a rule written in the station manual, but for Elias, it is a meditation. He opens a small tin of polishing paste. It smells sharp, chemical, and pungent, ammonia and chalk. He takes a clean rag, wraps it around his index finger, and dips it into the paste. He picks up the scissors. He starts with the handle loops. He rubs the paste into the metal, small circular motions, round and round, friction and pressure. The dull, tarnished yellow of the brass begins to turn black as the oxidation is lifted. Rub, rub, rub. He focuses entirely on a single square inch of metal. He works the rag into the crevices, around the screw that holds the blades together. He wipes away the black residue with a fresh part of the cloth. Underneath, the brass shines like gold. It catches the light from the stove, gleaming warmly. He moves to the blades. He runs the cloth along the flat edge, careful of the sharpness. He polishes until he can see his own distorted reflection in the metal. Next, he picks up the oil can he used earlier. It too is made of brass. He repeats the process. Dip the rag, apply the paste, rub in circles. The repetition is hypnotic. His hand moves automatically. His mind drifts. He is not thinking about the past or the future. He is simply here, in this circle of warmth, making things shine. He spends an hour polishing. By the time he is finished, the scissors, the oil can, and the spare lamp burner are arranged on the desk, glowing with a soft, deep luster. He folds the dirty rag and puts the lid back on the tin of polish. He looks at his hands. They are stained dark with the residue. He pours a little water into a basin and washes them with a bar of harsh lye soap. He He scrubs until the skin is pink and clean. He dries them on a rough towel. Elias checks his watch pocket again. It has been nearly 2 hours since sunset. The weights in the central column have descended halfway. The fire in the stove has burned down to a bed of glowing coals. He stands up and walks to the ladder. It is time to go back up to the lantern room. It is time to check the light.
Elias climbs the short iron ladder from the watch room back up into the lantern room. As his head rises above the floor level, the first thing he notices is the change in sound. Down below, the wind was a dull thrumming against the thick masonry. Up here, surrounded by glass, the world is louder, more immediate. The wind has shifted. It is no longer a crisp breeze from the north. It has turned eastward, rolling in off the open Atlantic, and it brings with it the heavy, wet breath of the ocean. He stands on the metal grating of the lantern room floor. The great Fresnel lens continues its slow, majestic rotation in the center of the room. Whir, hum. The beam of light swings around, a solid bar of yellow cutting through the darkness. But the quality of the light has changed. Earlier, the beam stretched out for miles, disappearing into a clear, starry distance. Now the light is meeting resistance. A thick bank of sea fog has rolled in. It presses against the glass of the lighthouse like a living thing, soft and gray. When the beam swings around, it no longer pierces the dark. Instead, it illuminates the swirling mists. The light catches the billions of tiny water droplets suspended in the air, creating a glowing, opaque tunnel of white. It is a thick night. Elias walks to the glass. He places his hand near the pane, not touching it yet. He can feel the cold radiating from the outside. The temperature has dropped significantly. He looks closely at the glass. The clash between the freezing air outside and the warmth of the oil lamp inside has caused condensation to form on the interior surface of the panes. A fine mist of water has settled on the glass, blurring the view, threatening to dim the light's power. This cannot remain. The light must be clear. Elias turns and retrieves a clean chamois leather cloth from a hook on the central column. The leather is soft, tan-colored, and smells faintly of oil. He steps up to the first panel of glass. The lantern room is a polygon, made of many rectangular panes fitted into bronze astragals. There are 16 main panels to clean. He begins with the panel facing due north. He raises his hand. He presses the chamois against the top corner of the glass. He pulls it down in a long, slow stroke. Squeak! The leather drags against the wet glass. It leaves behind a clear, dry trail, revealing the swirling darkness outside. He folds the cloth, finding a dry spot, and wipes again, top to bottom, top to bottom. He moves with a methodical slowness. He is not just wiping a window, he is revealing the world. He finishes the first pane. He steps to the right. The second pane, this one faces north-northeast. He repeats the motion. Lift, press, drag. The condensation has gathered in larger droplets here, running down the glass in tiny, jagged rivers. Elias wipes them away. The motion is rhythmic, like the waves below. As he works, he watches the weather outside. The fog is growing denser. It swirls in the turbulence created by the tower, spiraling up and over the lantern room. Occasionally, the wind throws a handful of something harder against the glass. Tick, tick, tick. Sleet. Tiny pellets of ice are mixing with the fog. They bounce harmlessly off the reinforced glass, but they signal that winter is truly knocking at the door. Elias moves to the fifth pane, east. This is the side facing the open ocean. The wind is strongest here. He can see the glass flexing ever so slightly in its frame against the pressure of the gusts. He wipes the condensation away. Through the clear glass, he looks down. He cannot see the water anymore. The ocean is just a sound, a roaring, churning void beneath the blanket of white. He continues his circle.
Pane 8, southeast. Pane 9, south. The heat from the lamp is intense on his back as he circles the room, but the air coming off the glass is freezing on his face. It is a strange duality. Fire behind him, ice in front of him. He pauses to wring out the chamois cloth into a small bucket he brought with him. A trickle of water squeezes out, the gathered moisture of the night. He resumes. Pane 12, west. Here, facing the land, the wind is blocked by the tower itself. It is quieter. He wipes the glass and looks for the village lights on the distant mainland. Usually, he can see the faint twinkle of the harbor town 10 miles away. Tonight, there is nothing. The fog has swallowed the land as completely as it has the sea. He is alone in a white void. Pane 16, northwest. He finishes the last pane. He steps back and inspects his work. The glass is clear. The condensation is gone. The light from the lens can now pass through unobstructed, pushing as far into the fog as physics will allow. He puts the cloth away. He checks the lamp again. The flame is burning steady and true, unfazed by the weather outside. He checks the oil reservoir. The level has dropped slightly, but it is still sufficient. Elias leans against the railing for a moment, listening to the sleet pick up. The tick-tick-tick is becoming a steady shh. The sleet is turning to snow. Large, wet flakes are beginning to stick on the outside of the glass, melting and sliding down. He knows what this means. If the snow sticks and freezes, it will block the light. He will have to watch it closely. If it gets too bad, he will have to go out onto the external gallery, the narrow metal walkway that circles the outside of the lantern room, and scrape the ice off the glass in the freezing wind. But not yet. For now, the heat of the lantern is enough to melt the snow as it hits. He watches a single snowflake land on the glass right in front of his eyes. It is a perfect, intricate star of ice. For a second, it is illuminated by the massive beam of the lens, glowing brilliant white. Then, touched by the warmth of the glass, it dissolves into a clear drop of water and slides away. Elias takes a deep breath. The air in the lantern room feels cleaner now that the windows are clear. He turns and walks to the hatch. His work here is done for the next hour. He descends the ladder. The metal rungs cool against his hands, leaving the bright, swirling world of the lantern room for the dim, warm sanctuary of the watchroom below.
Elias descends the final rung of the ladder and steps back onto the wooden floor of the watchroom. The contrast is immediate. Above, the world was glass, wind, and the harsh, blinding white of the beam cutting through the snow. Down here, the world is wood, iron, and the soft, pulsing glow of the stove. The air is still. The roar of the ocean is once again muffled to a distant, rhythmic bass note. He walks over to the desk. The oil lamp on the wall casts a warm, yellow circle of light onto the open logbook. It is time to record the change. The United States Lighthouse establishment requires precise records. A keeper does not guess, he observes and notes. Elias picks up the pen. The nib is steel, simple and functional. He dips it into the glass inkwell. Tap, tap. He shakes off the excess ink. He leans over the book, his hand hovering over the page. The paper is slightly rough, a heavy bond designed to last for decades. In the column for 20 hours too, he writes. The pen scratches across the paper, a dry, whispering sound that seems loud in the quiet room. Wind, NE, gale force building. Weather, snow squalls, viz, poor. Temp, 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Barometer, falling. He blows gently on the wet ink to dry it. He watches the black liquid lose its sheen and settle into the fibers of the paper. He closes the book, but he does not leave the desk. He opens the center drawer. It slides out with a wooden groan, revealing a small, disorganized collection of personal items that live beneath the official records. There are spare wicks, a sharpening stone, a pouch of pipe tobacco, and a small wooden box with a hinged lid.
Elias reaches for the box. The wood is cedar, smelling faintly of the forest even after all these years. He places it on the desk. He opens it. Inside, there are no jewels, no coins. There is only a stack of papers tied together with a faded red ribbon. He undoes the knot. His fingers, usually so clumsy with cold, are gentle here. He lifts the top letter from the stack. The paper is yellowed, brittle at the edges. It has been folded and unfolded 1,000 times. The date in the corner reads June 12th, 1874. 18 years ago. He does not read the words, he knows them by heart. Instead, he traces the loops of the handwriting with his thumb. The ink has faded to a soft brown. He remembers the hand that wrote it, Sarah's hand. He remembers the day the letter arrived on the supply boat, how the summer sun was shining on the water, making the ocean look like a field of diamonds. He reads the opening line in his mind. My dearest Elias, the garden is blooming early this year. He leans back in his chair, the letter resting on his knee. The storm outside is forgotten. The lighthouse, the snow, the cold, it all recedes. He is transported back to a small cottage on the mainland, to the smell of lilac and fresh bread. He closes his eyes. He can almost hear the hum of bees in the garden she described. It is a quiet memory. It does not bring sharp pain anymore, only a dull, comfortable ache, like an old scar that twinges when the rain comes. It is a feeling of connection. Even here, miles from the nearest living soul, suspended in a tower above a freezing ocean, he is anchored to the world by this scrap of paper. He sits there for 20 minutes, just holding the letter. The stove pops softly. The clockwork mechanism above him whirs on, counting down the minutes of his rotation. The weights in the central shaft are slowly descending, ticking away the time of his watch. Finally, Elias opens his eyes. The moment has passed. The room is the same as it was. The yellow light, the smell of kerosene, the darkness pressing against the small window. He carefully refolds the letter, matching the existing creases perfectly. He places it back on the stack. He ties the red ribbon, a simple bow. He puts the stack back into the cedar box and closes the lid. Click. He slides the drawer shut. The past is put away. The present returns. He stands up and stretches. His back cracks, a dry sound. He walks over to the stove and adds another log. The fire accepts it greedily, the flames licking up around the bark. He holds his hands out to the warmth, rubbing them together. It is time to check the weights. He moves to the small glass window in the central column of the room, the shaft where the driving weights hang. He peers inside. The heavy iron weights are halfway down the shaft. They have another 2 hours of travel before they hit the bottom and the light stops turning. He does not need to wind them yet. But he decides to do a mid-watch check. He walks to the door that leads to the gallery, the outdoor walkway that circles the watchroom. He needs to feel the weather, not just see it through the glass. He puts on his heavy wool coat. He puts on his cap, pulling it down tight. He puts on his leather gloves. He grips the iron handle of the door. He braces himself. He turns the handle and pushes. The wind slams against the door, trying to rip it from his grasp. A blast of freezing air rushes into the warm room, carrying snowflakes that swirl and melt instantly on the floor. Elias steps out, pulling the door shut behind him with a heavy thud. He is outside. The noise is deafening. The wind howls around the curve of the tower, a physical force that pushes against his chest. The snow is flying horizontally, stinging his cheeks like sand. He grips the iron railing with both hands. He looks up. Above him, the great lantern is glowing like a moon. He can see the gleams of light swinging through the snow, illuminating the falling flakes in a dizzying, swirling dance. The snow is not sticking to the glass yet. The heat is doing its job. The light is strong. He looks down. Below is the abyss. The ocean is invisible, a black void that roars and crashes against the rocks. Occasionally, a wave breaks with such force that he can feel the vibration travel up through the stone foundation, up the brick walls, and into the soles of his boots. He stands there for a minute, a tiny, insignificant figure on a stone needle in the middle of a fury. He breathes in the icy air. It wakes him up. It sharpens his senses. This is his world, this wild, hostile, beautiful emptiness. He nods to the ocean. He nods to the light. Then he turns, opens the door, and steps back into the warmth.
The grandfather clock in the corner of the watchroom chimes. Bong, bong. It strikes 12 times. Midnight. The sound hangs in the air, vibrating against the iron walls before fading into the constant hum of the rotation gears. The storm outside has settled into a steady driving rhythm. The wind is no longer gusting. It is simply pressing, a relentless weight against the tower. But inside, the routine continues unbroken. Midnight marks the halfway point of the watch. It is the hinge upon which the night swings. To mark the occasion and to stave off the heaviness of the eyelids, Elias prepares coffee. In 1892, coffee is not a matter of instant powder or electric machines. It is a ritual of mechanics and heat. Elias opens the cupboard again. He retrieves a small canvas bag, the fabric stiff and stained brown. He opens the drawstring. The smell hits him instantly, rich, dark, and oily. It is the scent of distant places, of Brazil or Java, a stark contrast to the salt and kerosene smell of the Maine coast. He reaches in and scoops out a handful of beans. They are dark and glossy. He pours them into the hopper of his coffee grinder. It is a small wooden box made of oak, with a cast iron funnel on top and a small drawer at the bottom. He sits in his chair, placing the grinder between his knees to hold it steady. He grips the iron handle. He begins to turn. Crunch, grind, crunch, grind. The sound is loud and gravelly. The steel burrs inside the box crush the hard beans into powder. It is a resistance he can feel in his wrist. He turns the handle methodically. There is no way to speed this up. The beans must be ground. Grind, grind, grind. For 5 minutes, this is his entire world. The vibration of the grinding travels through the wood and into his legs. The smell of fresh coffee grows stronger, filling the small circular room, masking the smell of the oil lamp. It is a comforting, domestic smell. When the hopper is empty, he pulls open the small drawer at the bottom of the grinder. It is full of dark, fragrant grounds. He takes his coffee pot, a battered tin percolator that has seen 1,000 nights. He fills the bottom with water from the pitcher. He places the basket in, fills it with the grounds, and sets the pot on the stove. He does not wait for it to boil immediately. He leaves it there to heat slowly. While the coffee brews, he must perform the midnight round. Elias takes a handheld lantern from the hook. It is a smaller version of the great light above, a brass cage with a glass chimney and a wire handle. He lights it from the stove. The flame flickers, casting long, dancing shadows. He opens the hatch in the floor and steps onto the spiral staircase. He begins the descent. Step 144. He goes down. The air gets cooler with every rotation of the spiral. The heat of the stove and the great lamp stays at the top of the tower. Down here, the stone walls radiate the chill of the earth. Step 100. The sound of the wind changes. Up in the lantern room, it was a high-pitched whistle. Here, in the belly of the tower, it is a low, dull roar like a train passing in the distance. The thick brick walls, 3 feet deep at this height, swallow the noise. Step 72. Halfway down, Elias walks slowly. He runs his hand along the outer wall as he descends. The bricks are cold and slightly damp. Condensation weeps from the masonry, mimicking the storm outside. He checks the windows as he passes. They are black squares, completely plastered with snow. He cannot see out, and no one can see in. Step 40. The shadows from his swinging lantern stretch out wildly, twisting around the spiral stairs like living things. But Elias is not afraid of ghosts. He knows every shadow in this tower. He knows that the strange shape on the wall is just a shadow of the railing, and the dark patch in the corner is just a spare coil of rope. Step 20. He reaches the ground floor.
The air here is cold, smelling of wet stone and the sea. He stands in the entryway. He walks to the main door, the heavy oak barrier that separates him from the world. He inspects the iron bolts. They are shot home, solid and unmoving. He places his hand against the wood of the door. He can feel the vibration of the waves crashing against the rocks outside. The ocean is pounding on the doorstep, but the door holds. He walks to the oil storage room at the base of the tower. He unlocks the door. The smell of kerosene here is overpowering. Rows of large metal drums stand in the darkness. This is the lifeblood of the light. He checks the taps on the drums to ensure there are no leaks. The floor is dry. The reserve is safe. Everything is in order. The foundation is solid. The supplies are secure. Elias turns and faces the stairs. Now comes the climb. 144 steps up. He begins the ascent. It is harder than the descent. His breath comes in rhythm with his steps. Step, breath, step, breath. The lantern swings by his side. The circle of light climbs the wall with him. As he rises past step 100, he smells it. The coffee. The aroma has drifted down the shaft to meet him. It is a welcoming scent, promising warmth and alertness. He climbs the final steps and emerges back into the watchroom. The pot on the stove is bubbling gently. Perk, perk, perk. The sound is cheery. He blows out his handheld lantern and hangs it up. He takes a heavy ceramic mug from the shelf. It is thick-walled, designed to keep heat in. He wraps a cloth around the handle of the pot and pours. The liquid is black and steaming. He adds no milk, no sugar. He likes the bitterness. It matches the night. He sits in his chair, cupping the mug with both hands, letting the heat transfer to his palms. He takes a sip. It is hot, strong, and gritty. He feels the caffeine hit his system, a subtle sharpening of the mind. He looks at the clock, 12:25 a.m. He looks up at the ceiling. The gears are still turning. Whir. He looks at the stove. The fire is steady. Crackle. He looks at the window. The snow is still falling. He is warm. He is awake. He is the keeper, and his watch continues.
It is now 1 a.m. The coffee has done its work, bringing a sharp clarity to Elias's mind, but the machine needs its own form of renewal. The great clockwork engine that turns the lens has been running for 4 hours since the initial winding at sunset. The heavy iron weights, which provide the gravitational energy for the rotation, have descended nearly the entire length of the central shaft. If they touch the bottom, the lens stops. If the lens stops, the beam becomes a fixed stare, confusing the ships at sea. Elias stands up from his chair. He sets his empty mug on the desk. He rolls up the sleeves of his wool shirt, revealing forearms corded with the muscle of a lifetime of manual labor. This is the hardest part of the night. He approaches the pedestal in the center of the watchroom. He opens the small inspection door to check the cable drum. The steel cable is unwound, stripped almost bare. He closes the door. He takes the heavy iron crank handle from its hook on the wall. It weighs 5 pounds on its own. He slots it into the winding square on the side of the pedestal. Clunk, it fits perfectly. He adopts his stance, feet shoulder-width apart, planted firmly on the iron floor plates. He grips the polished wooden handle with both hands. He takes a deep breath, filling his lungs with the warm air of the room. He pushes. Click. The first tooth of the ratchet engages. The resistance is immense. He is lifting hundreds of pounds of dead weight from the bottom of the tower, 60 feet below. Click, click. He settles into the rhythm. It is a slow, grinding cadence. Down, around, up. Down, around, up. His entire body moves with the crank. He uses his legs, his back, his shoulders. Click-clack, click-clack. The sound echoes in the small room, a harsh, mechanical heartbeat. With every click, the weights rise a fraction of an inch. With every click, he buys another few seconds of rotation for the light. Sweat begins to bead on his forehead, despite the chill near the floor.
His breathing becomes heavier. Huff, click-clack, huff, click-clack. He does not rush. To rush is to risk slipping, to risk the handle spinning back and breaking an arm. He respects the machine. He gives it his strength, and it gives him time. 10 minutes pass. The winding continues. The cable drum slowly fills up again, the steel wire wrapping around it in neat, tight coils. Elias switches hands, giving his right arm a brief rest, while his left takes the strain. The motion is seamless. Finally, the resistance changes. The weights hit the stop at the top of the shaft. He gives it one final locking turn. Click. He holds it there for a second, feeling the tension, ensuring the pawl has caught the gear. It holds. He slides the crank handle off and hangs it back on the wall. He exhales a long, loud breath, wiping his brow with a handkerchief. The machine is fed. It has energy for another 4 hours. But the light also needs food. Elias climbs the ladder back up to the lantern room. The heat hits him immediately. The lamp has been burning hot for hours. He checks the reservoir at the base of the burner. The oil level is low, dangerously close to the bottom mark. He does not pour oil directly into the hot lamp. That would be dangerous. Instead, he uses the mechanical pump system. He connects a small brass pipe from the main supply tank, located on the wall, to the lamp's reservoir. He turns a small valve. Squeak! He begins to pump a small hand lever. Swish, glug, swish, glug. The sound is wet and viscous. He watches the glass gauge on the side of the lamp. The clear golden kerosene begins to rise. It moves slowly, fighting the pressure. He pumps steadily. He watches the oil climb, past the quarter mark, past the half mark, up to the full line. He stops pumping. He closes the valve. He disconnects the pipe. Not a drop is spilled. He checks the flame one last time. It had dipped slightly as the oil pressure changed, but now it flares back up, bright and steady. He adjusts the wick knob a fraction of a millimeter to perfect the shape of the flame. He steps back. The lens continues to turn. Whir. The light continues to flash. The snow continues to fall against the glass, melting into weeping streams of water. Everything is full. The weights are high. The oil is high. The tower is reset. Elias stands there for a moment, bathed in the warmth and light. He feels a deep sense of satisfaction. It is a simple job, perhaps, winding a clock, filling a lamp, but it is what keeps the ships off the rocks. It is order in the midst of chaos. He turns and descends the ladder, leaving the light to its vigil.
The clock strikes 3. Bong, bong, bong. This is the hour known to sailors and night watchmen as the wolf hour. It is the deepest, darkest part of the night, the valley between the end of yesterday and the beginning of tomorrow. It is the time when the world is most silent, when the connection between the body and the mind is at its thinnest. Elias sits in his high-backed wooden chair. The heavy work is done. The weights are wound. The oil is full. The glass is clear. There is nothing left to do but wait. He does not read. He does not write. He simply exists. The storm outside has changed its character. The violent gusts have smoothed out into a long, continuous drone. The snow has stopped hitting the glass with sharp ticks. Now it falls softly, muffling the world in a thick blanket of white silence. The ocean, too, seems to have found a rhythm, a slow, heaving breath that rocks the foundation of the tower so gently it is imperceptible to anyone but a man who has lived here for 20 years. Inside the watchroom, the silence is heavy. It is not an empty silence, but a full one. It is filled with the tiny, microscopic sounds of the tower settling. Click. The stove cools slightly as the wood turns to white ash.
Creak! The wooden floorboards shift under the change in temperature. Thump, thump! Elias's own heart beats slow and steady in his chest. His eyelids feel heavy, as if small lead weights have been sewn into the lashes. He fights the urge to close them. He blinks slowly, once, twice. The room blurs for a moment, the warm orange of the stove mixing with the shadows before snapping back into focus. He focuses on the dust motes floating in the air. They drift in the convection currents rising from the stove, spiraling up towards the ceiling, dancing in the faint light. He watches one single speck of dust travel from the arm of his chair up past the desk and disappear into the darkness near the ceiling. It takes a full minute. He shifts his weight in the chair. The wood groans softly. He extends his legs, feeling the warmth of the stove on his boots. His toes wiggle inside the thick wool socks. Above him, the machine continues its vigil. Whir, hum. It is the only constant. It does not tire. It does not sleep. The gears mesh. The governor spins. The lens turns. Elias matches his breathing to the sound. Inhale for the sweep of the light. Exhale for the darkness. Inhale. Exhale. His mind begins to drift. He is no longer in the tower. He is floating on the sea, drifting on a calm raft. The water is smooth as glass. The sky is full of stars. He is safe. He is warm. His chin dips to his chest. Snap! He jerks his head up. He takes a deep breath. He stands up. He cannot sleep. To sleep is to fail. He walks a slow circle around the small room. 3 steps to the window. 3 steps to the door. 3 steps to the desk. 3 steps to the chair. He repeats the circuit. The movement pumps the blood back into his legs. He stops at the window. He presses his forehead against the cold iron frame. He looks out, but there is nothing to see. The world is gone. There is only the tower, floating in a void of white and black. He returns to his chair. He sits. He checks the watch again. 3:40 a.m. Only 20 minutes have passed since he last looked. Time has stretched out, becoming thin and elastic. He settles back in. He rests his head against the high wooden back of the chair. He watches the embers in the stove glowing deep red, fading to gray, then glowing red again as a draft of air hits them. It is a slow, pulsing light, like the breathing of a sleeping animal. The wolf hour is passing. The deepest darkness is beginning to thin, though the sun is still hours away. Elias closes his eyes for just a second, listening to the hum of the gears, letting the rhythm wash over him, keeping him suspended in this peaceful, quiet waiting.
5:45 a.m. The change comes slowly, almost imperceptibly. It begins not as light, but as a lessening of the dark. The deep, impenetrable black outside the windows slowly dissolves into a heavy, cold gray. The storm has passed. The wind, which had howled and battered the tower all night, has exhausted itself. It is now just a whisper, a soft breeze moving the last of the snowflakes. Elias stands at the window of the watchroom. He rubs his eyes. He can see the horizon again. It is a blurred line where the gray sea meets the gray sky, but it is there. The world has returned. He turns from the window and looks at the clock. It is time. The sun has not yet broken the rim of the ocean, but the civil twilight is here. The ships can see the land now. They no longer need his artificial star. He climbs the iron ladder to the lantern room for the final time this shift. Up here, the difference is profound. The beam of the lens, which looked so powerful and brilliant against the night, now appears pale and ghostly against the morning light. It washes over the glass panes, but it no longer cuts through the air.
It is a light without purpose. Elias approaches the pedestal. First, the rotation. He reaches for the brake lever. He pulls it gently. The heavy brass gears slow down. The hum drops in pitch from a high whine to a low drone, and then silence. The massive glass beehive of the Fresnel lens comes to a halt. The room, which has been spinning in shadows for 12 hours, is suddenly still. The vibration in the floor ceases. The heartbeat of the tower has stopped. Next, the lamp. Elias opens the glass door of the lens. He feels the heat of the lamp, a dry, intense warmth that has built up over the night. He turns the brass knob of the oil valve. He cuts the supply. He watches the flame. Deprived of fuel, it sputters. It drops lower. The bright yellow turns to a weak blue. Then, with a tiny fup sound, it vanishes. A thin trail of gray smoke rises from the wick, smelling of extinguished effort. Elias removes the glass chimney. He places a metal cap over the burner to prevent any stray fumes. The lantern room is now cold and silent. But there is one final crucial task. He walks to a storage chest and pulls out a set of heavy linen curtains. He hooks them onto the brass rail that circles the inside of the lantern room glass. He draws them closed. Swish, swish. He covers the lens completely. This is not for privacy, but for safety. If the morning sun were to hit the prisms of the giant lens, the concentrated beam could burn the inside of the tower. The lens must sleep in the dark to protect the station. The room is now dim, lit only by the filtered gray light coming through the linen. The job is done. Elias descends the ladder. He moves through the watchroom. He picks up the logbook one last time. 0600 hours, light extinguished, rotation stopped, weather clearing, all secure. He closes the book. He caps the ink. He puts the pen in the drawer. He picks up his coffee mug, now cold and empty. He walks down the spiral stairs, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Clang, clang, clang. Step 100, step 50, step 10. He exits the tower and enters the small keeper's cottage attached to the base. It is cold in here, but it is the cold of home. He walks into his bedroom. It is a small room, sparse and tidy. There is a narrow bed with a quilt made of heavy wool patches. He sits on the edge of the bed. The mattress springs creak. He bends down and unlaces his boots. His fingers are stiff, but he works the knots loose. He pulls the boots off one by one, setting them on the floor. His feet feel light, relieved of the weight. He stands and removes his heavy coat, hanging it on the back of the door. He removes his vest. He is left in his undershirt and trousers. He does not change further. He is too tired. He pulls back the heavy quilt. The sheets underneath of flannel, cool to the touch. He lies down. The pillow is soft. His head sinks into it. He pulls the quilt up to his chin. He closes his eyes. For a moment, he still feels the phantom vibration of the tower in his body. He still hears the phantom wind. But then, the real sounds of the morning take over. The cry of a seagull, distant and lonely. The lap of the water against the rocks, gentle and rhythmic. The slow, steady rise and fall of his own chest. Elias lets go. The tension in his shoulders releases. The muscles in his legs relax. The thoughts of oil and wicks and gears drift away like the morning fog. He is safe. The ships are safe. The light is resting. His watch is over. And now, as the gray light of dawn holds the world in a quiet embrace, it is time for you to rest too. Close your eyes Let the silence of the tower fill your mind. Sleep.